Well, the enemy was my husband's department. I was a problem. What do we do with her?
This little boy is called Philip. His full name is Philip Schleswig-Holstein Sonderburg Glucksburg, and he grew up in Germany. He was raised amongst his Nazi in-laws, some of whom later became high-ranking members of the SS. His Nazi relatives then sent him to this school in southern Germany, where he studied for a while under the Nazi curriculum. Philip later recalled that there was much heel-clicking and shouts of Heil Hitler were compulsory. And here's Philip, in Darmstadt, in the heart of Germany, in November 1937, attending a family funeral for some of his Nazi in-laws. Marching in front of a Sieg-heiling crowd, this is Philip, next to Christoph, his SS brother-in-law, and Philip, his Nazi stormtrooper brother-in-law. Imagine if a man with a past like this had somehow ended up marrying into British aristocracy. Well, he did. And as we know, he got first prize. He became the Duke of Edinburgh, also known as Prince Philip, after marrying Princess Elizabeth, the future Queen of England. Philip buried his Nazi past and became a respectable member of British royalty. And his story has continued happily ever after. Apart from a few family troubles that were quickly resolved. In the years before Princess Diana was killed, she told many people that the British establishment was planning to eliminate her.
Oh, of course Diana was bumped off. She knew she was going to be bumped off. But she always said she's not going to make old bones.
Diana had left a note saying that she thought that somebody was going to kill her and that it would be in a car accident.
When a woman left a note saying, FYI, if I'm dead, here's how it's going to happen, and then it happens exactly like that, I think someone should pay attention.
What if this woman's name had been Diana Smith, and she'd written in a note which had been subsequently unveiled, "My husband Charles Smith wants me to die in a car accident," and subsequently she did. In any other family or in any other country, surely Charles Smith would have been called to the witness stand at the inquest into his wife's death.
When you have the head of the British security services calmly announcing we have never killed anybody in the last 50 years, I laughed out loud. What's the point of them then? And we've all been to James Bond movies, thanks. We know the security services do a lot of dark stuff. So the idea that we're supposed to believe that in 50 years the British secret agents have never actually killed anyone, I didn't believe it. And so if you don't believe that, where does that leave the rest of the establishment evidence?
Who knows what fate will produce? Who knows what circumstances will provoke?
It's weird that at a time when you know the establishment can think of nothing worse than Dodi Fayed, son of Muhammad, marrying, possibly impregnating Diana, that she's conducting a major international offensive against landmines with all the crippling economic problems that would bring for the British establishment again, and the British government, and America. If you add all these to the mix, then if you were ever going to do something dodgy to Diana, that's the time you would do it. She'd become trouble, as she used to say to me. I'm trouble to them. I won't go away. I won't go quietly.
She won't go quietly, that's the problem. I'll fight till the end.
Presidents have been killed for less. Is there a sense that maybe there was something going on behind the scenes there?
Well, I thought it was a very strange inquest from a legal, procedural point of view. I mean, here you had the guy presiding over it announcing de facto at the start, this is not a murder. Well, shouldn't that be left to the jury? Personally, I thought, odd. What would have happened in a normal case like that? You'd have waited for the jury to decide on evidence. Secondly, I thought it was very, very strange that the prime suspect from the Fayed camp, Duke of Edinburgh, was simply never called. Now, you may not think that he's a murderer, and I don't happen to think he is. I think that's probably fanciful. But I think he should have been called to give evidence if this was a proper inquest. Because everybody else who's been through an inquest process knows that key people involved all get called. Why wasn't he called?
Even as a result of the inquest, you have a verdict which opens another door, a verdict which the public and the media have always misconstrued. It wasn't a verdict of accident. That was an option, but the jury didn't choose that. They chose unlawful killing, and they specified the circumstances for that. It related in part to following vehicles. And what we do know from the evidence is that the vast majority of the following vehicles did not relate to the paparazzi. And that's the illusion that's always been made, that it was the paparazzi following closely that caused the accident. Well, that's not right.
I went over to Paris and I started this book believing it was an accident.
Really?
I was convinced it was an accident.
Really?
Yes. But then, as a journalist, you will know, if you start asking ordinary questions and you get stupid answers to little questions, you think, why? Why did they wash down the roads and the things, forensically killing it with soap and water 3 hours after the crash? Why did they give it to the criminal brigade to investigate and not the traffic police? Why, when Mercedes-Benz instantly after the crash offered to send two of their top experts to examine the wreckage and help determine what had happened, the French police wouldn't allow them anywhere near it, and they'd never been allowed near it? Why, having shouted to the world that Henri Paul was 3 times over the limit in drinking and had hairline traces of drugs for alcoholism and depression, why did they stop at that? Why did they not tell the world that there was also 25% carbon monoxide in that blood sample? That didn't come out for 10 months after the crash. He would have had over 30% in his blood when he left the Ritz Hotel.
Which means he'd be dead.
Well, if he wasn't dead, he'd be crawling about, spewing on the floor. It didn't happen. It wasn't his blood.